So tell your dead mama dig her ass up and post a picture that look better than my motherfucking mama.
That was King Harris running his mouth a few weeks ago. Now is begging. Apparently the same man he mocked, 50 Cent, is reportedly preparing a documentary that could tear the Harris family apart. And if even half of what's rumored to be in it is true, King might regret every word he said. The begging. What we know and what we don't. In early March 2026, rumors began circulating that 50 Cent was working on a documentary tentatively titled Surviving T and Tiny. Before those rumors dropped, King Harris was one of the loudest voices in the beef against 50 Cent. He made videos, he made diss tracks, he made t-shirts, he made a cannabis product, all of it targeted at 50 Cent. None of it subtle. To understand why King Harris went from attack mode to desperation mode, you have to understand what he actually said and did before the documentary entered the picture. Because what King did was not a standard rap beef response. It was personal in a way that crossed lines most people in hip-hop consider off limits. Your mama dead. Dig that up. How you were raised. I'm not raised like that. That is King Harris in a video that went viral, responding to 50 Cent after 50 posted an unflattering photo of King's mother Tiny Harris. King did not hold back. He went directly at 50 Cent's late mother Sabrina Jackson, who died in a fire when 50 Cent was just 8 years old. Don't go. I'm not going back, my mama. I'm not going. King kept repeating that he would not tolerate anyone disrespecting his mother. But in doing so, he disrespected someone else's mother. Someone who is dead and cannot respond. That distinction matters because it is a reason the public turned on him and the reason 50 Cent escalated.
Your mama dead is... Dig that up! How y'all raised? I'm not raised like that.
King did not stop at the video. He wore a t-shirt with Sabrina Jackson's image on it. He launched a cannabis strain called Ms. Jack Pack with packaging that featured her likeness, and he released diss tracks, including one called Drop Top, where he rapped lines like, "You were made from 50 cents because your mama gave it cheap." The reaction was split. Some people saw a young man defending his family. Most people saw a 21-year-old mocking a dead woman for internet clout. And 50 Cent, a man who has built a second career on calculated revenge, took note of every single move. The internet did what the internet does. Screenshots got saved. Videos got reposted. Commentary channels broke down every word King said, every product he launched, every line he rapped. All of that content created a permanent record, one that could not be deleted, walked back, or explained away. And that record would matter later because when the documentary rumors surfaced, King's actions were not just memories. They were evidence of provocation. They were the justification 50 Cent could point to when people asked why he would go after a 21-year-old. So when the documentary rumors dropped, the narrative wrote itself. King had gone too far. And now 50 Cent had the weapon to end the conversation for good. No wonder his lack of composure. In any case, the idea that he would want that documentary gone makes sense to anyone paying attention. And to understand why, we need to go back to where this whole thing started, long before King was old enough to pick a side. The roots, how 50 Cent and T.I. got here. This beef did not begin with King Harris. It did not begin with diss tracks or Instagram posts or documentaries. It began with two men who rose to the top of hip-hop in the same year from opposite ends of the country and spent 2 decades circling each other. In 2003, 50 Cent released Get Rich or Die Trying, an album built on the story of surviving 9 gunshots and clawing his way out of Queens, New York. That same year, T.I. released Trap Music, the album that helped define an entire subgenre of rap from Atlanta and cemented his title as a self-proclaimed king of the South. Both men sold millions. Both men commanded loyalty from their respective regions. And both men existed in a hip-hop ecosystem where competition between New York and the South was not just cultural. It was structural. Album sales, radio play, award nominations, all of it fed a rivalry that did not need to be spoken out loud to be felt. For years, the tension between 50 Cent and T.I. stayed beneath the surface. There were no diss tracks, no public confrontations, just two artists operating in the same space with enough mutual respect or mutual indifference to keep things civil. That changed around 2020 when the Versus Battle series emerged during the pandemic, created by Swizz Beatz and Timbaland. Versus put legendary artists head-to-head in live-stream catalog showcases, and T.I. began publicly campaigning for a matchup against 50 Cent. T.I. drew comparisons to the 2007 sales battle between 50 Cent's album Curtis and Kanye West's Graduation, a showdown 50 famously lost and used as a reason to temporarily step back from music. T.I. argued that he had the catalog, the hits, and the cultural impact to go toe-to-toe. He made his case on every platform available to him: podcasts, radio interviews, Instagram lives, painting the picture of a matchup that he believed the culture deserved to see. But 50 Cent refused repeatedly, on Instagram, on podcasts, in interviews. 50 said he had moved past that kind of thing. He pointed to his television empire, specifically the Power franchise on Stars, as evidence that he was operating on a different level now. Music battles, he implied, were beneath him. That rejection stung, and the way 50 delivered it stung more. He did not just decline, he dismissed. He treated the request as if it were beneath consideration, as if T.I. were asking to sit at a table he had not owned a seat at. For an artist who had spent 2 decades positioning himself as hip-hop royalty from the South, that dismissal was personal. T.I. interpreted it not as disinterest, but as fear and disrespect. And so the back and forth continued through sporadic online exchanges, enough to keep the animosity warm, but not enough to constitute a full-blown beef. That equilibrium held for years. Then February 2026 arrived, and the equilibrium shattered. T.I. appeared on Shannon Sharpe's Nightcap podcast and accused 50 Cent of cowardice, claiming that behind-the-scenes conversations had shown 50's initial willingness to do the versus, only for him to back out publicly. To punctuate the point, T.I. released a diss track titled Let Him Know, filmed in New York City, 50 Cent's home territory, with lyrics that targeted 50's age, his pivot to acting, and what T.I. framed as inconsistencies in 50's persona as a tough guy. 50 Cent's response was not musical. Instead, he shared a resurfaced clip from a 2003 legal incident that implied T.I. had cooperated with law enforcement, effectively branding him a snitch. In hip-hop, that word carries weight that goes beyond insult. It attacks a person's authenticity, their credibility, their entire foundation. And with that single move, 50 Cent shifted the beef from a debate about who had the better catalog to a referendum on T's character. That is the soil from which everything else grew. The family involvement, the diss tracks, the dead mother jokes, the documentary, all of it traces back to this moment. The moment the beef stopped being about music and became about reputation. Once that line was crossed, there was no returning to harmless competition. This was now a war over who could inflict the most lasting damage. For 50 Cent, a man who had already destroyed careers through strategic media campaigns, the tools available to him dwarfed anything T.I. or his family could assemble. T.I. had bars. 50 Cent had a production company. That asymmetry would define everything that followed. And the first member of T's family to step into that fire without fully understanding its temperature was his son, King Harris. The family affair, King steps into the fire. The feud between 50 Cent and T.I. was already personal before King Harris got involved, but King's entry transformed it from a two-man standoff into something that consumed an entire household and played out across every social media platform simultaneously. King Harris, born August 25, 2004, grew up in the public eye. He appeared on the VH1 reality series T.I. and Tiny, The Family Hustle, which ran from 2011 to 2017 and documented the daily life of the Harris family. By the time the 50 Cent beef escalated, King was 21 years old enough to make his own decisions, young enough to make impulsive ones. He had already built a reputation for being outspoken through viral moments on the show, including heated arguments with his parents that demonstrated a willingness to speak his mind regardless of consequences. The trigger that pulled King into the conflict was specific. 50 Cent posted an unflattering photograph of Tiny Harris on Instagram during one of his exchanges with T.I. That post crossed a line, targeting a man's wife, especially in a public forum with millions of followers, moved the fight from professional rivalry into domestic territory, and the Harris family responded as a unit. King and his older brother Domani rallied immediately, but where Domani's responses carried a degree of restraint, King's were volatile and relentless. His video attacking 50 Cent's late mother spread across the internet within hours. The language was raw, the intent was clear, and the reaction was massive. King repeated the same message over and over in that video. He wanted it heard. He wanted it to cut, and for a moment, it did generate attention. But the attention was not the kind that helps a career. It was the kind that creates a target. Beyond the video, King doubled down. The T-shirt, the cannabis strain, the diss tracks. The Harris family collectively released approximately 6 diss tracks aimed at 50 Cent King's contributions, included Drop Top and other records that took direct shots at 50's personal history. Domani added his own verses. T.I. himself dropped multiple tracks boasting about his discography and mocking 50's transition to Hollywood. T.I. addressed the situation in interviews, offering a complicated take on his son's involvement. He said he did not love seeing them dragged into negativity, but he respected their loyalty. He described their willingness to defend the family with the phrase, "Nah, my kids ride now," meaning they were willing to stand up and fight when the family was under attack. It was a kind of statement that played well in hip-hop culture where family loyalty is treated as sacred, but it also served as a quiet endorsement of King's behavior that was rapidly alienating the very audience King needed to build a career. The problem was structural. King was fighting a battle that required restraint, and restraint was not in his toolkit. Every time he escalated, another video, another product, another track, he gave 50 Cent more material without extracting any concession in return. 50 Cent did not need to respond because King was doing the damage to himself. Each new provocation made King look more reckless and made 50 Cent's eventual response, whatever form it took, look more justified.
Don't go. I'm not going back my mama, nigga. I'm not going.
That line and others like it drew condemnation from across the internet. The consensus among commentators was that King had gone too far. Mocking a dead woman, regardless of the provocation, was viewed as fundamentally different from trading insults with a living opponent. And King, at 21, was punching up at a 50-year-old media mogul who had spent decades perfecting the art of the long game. Meanwhile, 50 Cent barely engaged musically. He posted memes. He dropped cryptic captions on Instagram. He released a promotional single for his Power Origin series that contained a line widely interpreted as a warning. LOL, they are going to learn to leave me alone. The disparity was stark. The Harris family was flooding the zone with content while 50 Cent was barely lifting a finger, choosing instead to let anticipation do the work. That restraint was not accidental. 50 Cent has operated this way for decades, absorbing attacks, cataloging insults, and waiting for the optimal moment to respond with something disproportionate. He did it with Ja Rule. He did it with Rick Ross. The pattern is always the same. Let the other side overextend, then respond with something they cannot match. In this case, the response would not be a verse or a social media post. It would be a documentary, a piece of long-form content designed not to win a news cycle, but to reshape a narrative permanently. And that anticipation was about to take the form of something far more destructive than anything the Harris family had prepared for. The documentary, 50 Cent's nuclear option. If diss tracks are bullets in a rap beef, a documentary is an airstrike. And 50 Cent, a man who had already demonstrated what a well-timed expose could do to a person's career, signaled in early March 2026 that he was loading the payload. Rumors of a documentary tentatively titled Surviving T.I. and Tiny began circulating shortly after the family diss tracks peaked. The title was a deliberate echo of Surviving R. Kelly, the docu series that played a central role in reshaping public perception of R. Kelly and contributed to the legal reckoning he faced. By naming his project in that same tradition, 50 Cent was making a statement before a single frame of footage aired. This was not going to be a recap of a rap beef. This was going to be an indictment. 50 Cent fueled the speculation himself. He posted a now-deleted Instagram screenshot from a radio station article about the documentary with a caption that read, "Remember how quiet I got before the documentary? Dame thought I wasn't coming. I hope this doesn't mess up your promo tour. They are going to ask about your 20 sexual assault cases. You might want to talk to a crisis PR person." 50 Cent was drawing a direct line. He had done this before. He had done it effectively, and now he was preparing to do it again. The mention of 20 sexual assault cases pointed directly at the allegations that had trailed T.I. and Tiny since 2021, making clear exactly what the documentary would center on. Those allegations were serious. Starting in 2021, over a dozen women came forward with claims of sexual assault, drugging, and coercion against T.I. and Tiny. The initial wave was amplified by a former associate named Sabrina Peterson, who shared anonymous accounts on Instagram describing scenarios where victims alleged they were drugged with substances at parties and then subjected to non-consensual acts. Subsequent lawsuits followed, including one as recently as 2024. However, the majority of these cases were dismissed on procedural grounds, such as statutes of limitations. There have been no convictions. T.I. and Tiny have denied all allegations, stating that any activities in their private life involve consensual adults. But a documentary does not need a conviction to cause damage. What it needs is a narrative, a structured, produced, edited retelling that places scattered allegations into a cohesive story arc. And 50 Cent, with his production infrastructure and media reach, had the resources to create exactly that. The precedent was already set. Surviving R. Kelly did not lead to R. Kelly's conviction on its own, but it shifted public opinion so dramatically that it created an environment where legal action became inevitable. 50 Cent was applying the same playbook. For T.I., the stakes were enormous. He had built a post-rap career on being a community leader, a businessman, a philanthropist, and a family man. His trap music museum, his real estate ventures, his public speaking, all of it depended on a carefully maintained image. A documentary that resurfaced the assault allegations in prime-time packaging could unravel partnerships, trigger boycotts, and redefine his legacy in the public mind. For King, the implications were equally severe. His emerging music career was built on his last name. Everything he had, the connections, the platform, the recognition, flowed from being T's son. A documentary that damaged the Harris brand would damage him by association, creating obstacles that no diss track or viral video could overcome. Record labels think twice about signing artists wrapped in scandal. Collaborators distance themselves. Streaming playlists get curated with controversy in mind. The ripple effect of a successful documentary would touch every aspect of King's professional life at the exact moment he was trying to establish himself as an independent artist. And there was a cool irony in the situation. King's entire involvement in the beef, the videos, the merch, the tracks, had been motivated by a desire to defend and uplift his family's name. But those same actions had provided 50 Cent with additional ammunition. Every clip of King disrespecting 50's mother could be edited into a documentary as evidence of the Harris family's character. Every diss track lyric could be quoted. King's defense of his family had inadvertently become a weapon against them. Reports from insiders described T.I. as devastated by the alleged early leaks. And the gossip channels extended that narrative to include King, portraying him as a young man who had talked his way into a fight he could not win and was now looking for an exit. Whether King actually reached out to 50 Cent or not remains unverified, but the logic tracks. The documentary represented consequences that operated on an entirely different scale from anything King had experienced in the beef so far. The fallout, where things stand now. King Harris, who was one of the most vocal participants in the beef just weeks earlier, has gone noticeably quieter. The flood of diss tracks has slowed. The provocative merchandise and cannabis branding have faded from the conversation. Whether that silence is a result of a direct plea to 50 Cent, advice from family or management, or simply the natural cooling of a situation that got out of hand is something only King and his inner circle know for certain. T.I., for his part, has not retreated. He responded to the documentary rumors with defiance, challenging 50 Cent to battle in any medium, including doc for doc, a statement that suggests he is either genuinely unafraid of what the project might contain or is projecting confidence to control the narrative. Given T's history of legal troubles, including federal weapons charges that resulted in prison time, and his experience navigating public crises, it is possible that he views a documentary threat as manageable. But manageable for a veteran artist with decades of crisis experience is not the same thing as manageable for his 21-year-old son.
So tell your dead mama dig her ass up and post a picture that look better than my mother.
That was King just weeks ago. Confident, aggressive, certain that the Harris family name carried enough weight to absorb whatever 50 Cent could throw. But a diss track and a documentary operate on different timelines and different scales. A diss track live for a news cycle. A documentary lives on a streaming platform, gets shared, gets discussed, gets cited in articles and lawsuits and conversation for years. King may have been prepared for a street fight. He was not prepared for a media war against someone who builds media empires for a living. Fan reactions on platforms like X and Reddit have been polarized. Some applaud 50 Cent for his calculated patience, viewing the documentary threat as the ultimate checkmate in a beef he never needed to win through music. Others criticize the entire dynamic. A 50-year-old media mogul with a production deal and millions of followers locked in a public conflict with a 21-year-old whose biggest platform is Instagram. The age gap, the power gap, the resource gap, all of it raises questions about proportionality. Even for people who believe King brought the situation on himself, there's a separate conversation happening about what this feud says about hip-hop in 2026. The genre has always rewarded aggression. It has always celebrated the artist who refuses to back down, who matches energy with energy, who treats every slight as a declaration of war. But the game has changed. The artists who dominate now are not just musicians. They are brands, content creators, and media executives. And the weapons available to them extend far beyond microphones and mixing boards. A documentary can do what 100 diss tracks cannot: reshape a person's public identity in a way that follows them for the rest of their career. That is the world King Harris walked into when he started posting videos about 50 Cent's mother. He was playing by old rules in a new game. There is also the question of 50 Cent's own motivations. The documentary, if it is real, serves multiple purposes beyond the beef. It generates content for his production company. It keeps his name in the news cycle. It reinforces his brand as someone who should not be crossed. 50 Cent has turned grudges into a business model. And the T.I. documentary, whether it ever airs or not, has already served its primary function as a deterrent. The threat alone changed the dynamics of the beef. The mere suggestion that the project existed was enough to shift the power balance entirely. That is the power of the weapon. It does not need to be fired to work. And for King Harris, the lesson may be the hardest one available in the entertainment industry. It is not the person who talks the loudest who wins. It is the person who has the most to leverage. King had words. 50 Cent has a production company, a distribution network, and a track record of turning personal grudges into profitable content. The begging, if it happened, was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign that King finally understood the size of the game he had entered, and that understanding may have come too late to undo what was already in motion. That wraps up this video. For more interesting videos like this, check out the cards on your screen.
My mama, listen, your mama chasing.